So we'll talk recruits. You've got your Trust the Process 76ers t-shirt. Talks about youth, talks about believing in the future. And I know this is a group that you're excited about. Let's go right with the offense. This is what everybody loves the most, talking about. Two quarterbacks you have coming in. One you picked from a school that you've had quite a bit of success from, Christian Academy in Knoxville, home of Quinn Epperly, 2013 Ivy Player of the Year. Let's talk about these two, Cole Smith, John Tracy.
Yeah, Cole, it's amazing that one high school's produced two quarterbacks, one in Quinn, who was Ivy League Player of the Year, Ivy champion, and then you get another guy who sets the state Tennessee passing record. Both these quarterbacks came to camp. There are two top guys. They, just like a lot of our quarterbacks, bring different top-level skills to the table in what they do extremely well. But Cole was in that Epperly Lovett mold in that he can really run. He's athletic. His explosion, like his jumping, like all those things are off the charts. But the difference between him and some other athletic quarterbacks, he can really throw it. I mean, he can provide a lot of all-around things that we want to see in our quarterbacks. And both these guys are off the smarts, intelligence when they talk football. You talk to their coaches and how smart they are. And I think he's not as thick or as big as Johnny or Quinn. He's a little leaner than they are. But as he gets stronger, a lot of things that you've seen them be successful at, he's going to have that in his repertoire as well as being a good thrower. In John Tracy's case, he is the spitting image of a throw of Connor Michelson, only he is about 3 inches taller. And he's going to develop even more arm strength because he's got a little more size to him. But the ball came out of his hand at camp, and Coach Perry, I get the signal, you got to come down and see this guy, because it was whistling. He has that super strong arm, and kind of backed it up with a terrific senior season, and really, and we've had some terrific drop back passers. Mm-hmm. He's gonna. He's in that mold of those type guys.
Running back, that this is more of a position where somebody could jump in and make an impact this year, considering what you lost in Joey Radigan and how much you use different running backs in different ways. You have a couple coming in E.J. Caldwell and Colin Eady. Do either or both seem like somebody that could make an impact in this offense, if they could pick it up quickly enough in the fall?
Yeah, it seems like every year we've had a freshman come in and play a role, some a little more significant than others. I mean, Chuck DeBillio was incredible, the role he had. We were a different team back then.
Right.
But we almost every year we've had one come in and have, because runners, their abilities translate pretty quickly. There's physical strength and blocking and some other areas, but the run skill translate pretty quickly. I couldn't figure out E.J. Caldwell. I love this video. He did so much. He catches the ball. He runs with it. He does well in space. And the energy he played with was so good. And Sean Gleason was coaching running backs at the time. And we gave separate evaluations. And he said, this guy reminds me of Quigley, physically and how he runs. And I went back and watched both their senior year videos. I think that's a great comparison. He has got a lot of the same traits that Ryan brought to the table as a high school senior, and things we really have seen on the field from Ryan. Hopefully we can see them early in EJ as well. He's got some strength development to work on to get there. Colin Eady, it was, I remember when I got the job and I'm watching Jordan Colberth, and we know the struggles he had health-wise and everything else, but he's one of the best running backs we've ever had here, and that's saying something.
But his junior year, when he was fully healthy,
was his grace, his ability to block, catch, run, his vision, his balance. And when I was watching Eady's tape, it reminded me so much of, junior year Jordan Colberth, and even his senior year, he was having a heck of a season before he got hurt. And it's just the same personality and leadership and upbeatness and things that Jordan brought to the table. He reminds me a lot of him.
Position for sure will have opportunities next season, considering the seniors that you lost, is that wide receiver position. You have, need for speed. You have need, slot guy, possession. big guys. You've had a lot of success with big guys. You have 3 coming in. How do they break down in different areas?
Yeah, and we've tried to do one of each area that we like. This is a harder position to play early. It's been rare for us to have a guy come in other than playing a niche role, because the amount of learning from high school wide receiver to college wide receiver in our offense, in our tempo. And these guys are going to have to really dig into things to get up to speed. Jake Bermelin is our prototypical slot, similar sized to the in speed and quickness and open field to the Roman Wilsons. Roman was a little bigger and thicker, and by the time he finished, he was really strong. But to him and Tiger Besh and Ronaldo and James Frashani, he's similar to those guys. Just put him in a slot. He's going to be very difficult to tackle in the open field. And guys, you want to get the ball in their hands. And he was one of the top receivers in Florida, coming out. And then Cash Goodhart is our
big tremendous name.
Range. Yeah, you can't wait to write that to lead your story. I know that's going to be your headline, hopefully soon on that. But yeah, he's our big, long, athletic receiver. We've had success with those guys. Stephen Carlson's one of those guys right now, obviously Jesper, but one of those outside receivers that again has body control and terrific hands and explosive speed. And we really thought that all 3 of these guys at camp, just stood out for us. And the third guy is Luke Montgomery. Luke stood out more for his raw tools, kind of like a Trevor Osborne or a Jordan Argue. And his production, though, in high school, when you watch his video, he dominated that way. Where the other guys maybe didn't play, maybe played more defense or did other things because they were so athletic. He's a guy like them that's going to be able to play anywhere along the wide receiver positions, and mostly because his athletic ability is off the charts.
You moved to tight end, and you mentioned it in the post-spring recap. 7 years of all Ivy tight ends. You've had blockers. You've had guys who have been parts of the passing game. Carpenter was there for 3 years. He was consistent. He was all Ivy every year of as a starter. So we know you have Graham Adamitis coming back, but you like to have 2 or 3 tight ends that you can go to, considering the physical nature of the position and the different tools that they can use and how they can help your offense. You have 2 coming in. Where do they feature?
Yeah, the 2 guys, and we like to have a mix of tight ends, just like we said at some of the other positions. And Adam Buchanan is in that Mark Hayes, just big, strong, great hands, intermediate routes, those type things. Mark was a tremendous player for us, and we see Adam being that type of edge blocker and just really good at the intermediate routes. He some of the catches he made that we've seen at camp and in his junior video were just off the charts. And then Carter Dunaway, we've struggled. Like Scott Carpenter is a guy that if you wouldn't say this guy's an all Ivy League tight end. You wouldn't. He just physically doesn't resemble that. He was a complete hard worker, overachiever, great technician, the type of guy as a coach you absolutely love. But as a recruiter, you want to get Graham Adamitis. You want to get Carter Dunaway.
Right.
Those guys are really similar, only Carter's probably got a lot more weight on him as a high school player than Graham did coming out. Graham was a high school quarterback until his senior year. But they're the 6'4", 245-pound guy that can run and gives the quarterback a huge target. And, just like with Graham, Carter's going to have to, hone some things in skill-wise, technique-wise, blocking. But you're working with unbelievable tools. And, I know Coach Willis, like these 2 guys, got the tools in a tight end that we really enjoy to work with.
Last couple of years, prior to this recruiting cycle, it felt like you were losing a lot of senior offensive linemen, and so you really kind of dug deep and fortified those positions. 5, 6, I think 7 guys was your high in terms of recruiting. You lose only 1 starter this year. You have a lot of sophomores, juniors who can make big impacts. So I know you didn't go quantity in terms of offensive linemen. 3 coming in. It's probably the lowest you've had in a few years, but I know it's a trio you like.
Yeah, it's, the trust the process. You can't have so many centers because
Right.
you can't develop them all. And somehow you gotta, get that where if you say Embiid's the best guy, you got to work with him, and you see this development in Holmes, you got to work with him. Well, it's the same thing with offensive linemen. We lost a group of seniors, and we were bringing in so many that, right now, if we went to 5 this year, I feel like we'd be shortchanging them in terms of their development.
Okay.
We have to be able to work with them, and we were going to go with high quality. It's what we did at defensive back. We were playing so many young guys that we just bring in big numbers wasn't going to work behind the Gaffneys and Hills and Galeses,
Right.
and they weren't going to get the development. So it's the same thing with the O-line, and starting with a couple of local guys from Jersey. David Hoffman is in that big, strong, physical, short area type guy like Jack Knight. And he walks into the room, and he's got a duck underneath the door, and he's just wide. He's one of those physical guys, and Jack, up until he hurt his had an injury,
Right.
he was a terrific,
anchored that line.
He anchored the line.
Yeah.
And David has a lot of the same characteristics. Ryan Huth was a guy that was off the radar, like one of those guys who's a baseball player, 6'5", 215 pounds, and it's why we don't recruit 8th graders. I don't know why anybody recruits 8th graders, but it's why we don't recruit them. I mean, because you don't know how they're going to develop.
Right.
And if you're recruiting 8th graders, Ryan's not going to be a football recruit. He hit a huge growth spurt. And in this growth spurt, he went from 215 to now he's like 6'5.5", and he's 275 pounds. And just looks rock solid. He still plays baseball. He's probably like the Big Hurt or somebody, crushing the baseball, this spring. But he's one of those guys that can move. He's athletic and has tremendous size. So, we think that he's a pure tackle. We think that, David can swing. And then at center, we brought in, and Ryan's a lot like Riley Radosevich, because Riley was a late bloomer as well. When I'm saying that,
Ivy as a freshman.
Ivy's a freshman and a Jersey guy, and
Right.
there's just a lot of comparisons you make that way. Then we're bringing in Nico Ivanisevic, his brother Stefan. Started for us, has been a really good football player for us. Where Stefan's a tackle that can play guard. Nico had such good traits at camp. When I was in the NFL, I worked with Paul Alexander. Paul used to say, your centers and guards should wrestle in high school, and your tackles play basketball. And there's exceptions, I know that, but Nico was the second in the state in wrestling in the state of Illinois, had an unbelievable record. He's just been a tremendous leverage player. You see that in his movements. He is way further advanced technically than Stefan was in high school. You can tell as each brother, you hit them. The younger brothers have gone through it, and he's coming to us as an advanced center, and he's. These 3 guys are all physically so mature that I think we're going to be able to get them the development needed to push some guys.